Now, you summed it up beautifully in The Telegraph when you said this election wasn't about race, it wasn't about gender and abortion, all the issues the media seem to be hyper-focused on. It was about secure borders, the economy and government overreach. And I would argue, Douglas, that last point was hugely significant for many of Trump's voters. The lawfare against Trump and his allies, this two-tier justice system that even targets conservative mums at school board meetings. It's a big issue for many in Trump's base.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing about not just the radical left, but the left in general in Australia, in Britain, in the US and other Western countries, Canada particularly, is that the moderate left thought that there were all of these issues which were like right-wing talking points or what didn't really affect people's lives. You know, professional dolts like Alistair Campbell in the UK have just started in recent days to sort of start to say maybe the thing of big hairy men being allowed in women's locker spaces locker rooms is not something that is just being made up by right-wing fanatics. Maybe we should have listened to women.
Hello everybody, we are on Sky News Australia today on the Rita Panahi show, and as you can see, her guest is Douglas Murray. Now, I've done a few videos of Douglas Murray before. Let me know what you think about him. I'm generally a big fan of Douglas Murray, although recently, in the past year, turns out he's like he's been shilling Israel hard the last year. Okay, that's his point of view. I haven't watched much of his reporting from Israel, but he's really into it. But I'm more interested in his other work, where he's commenting on culture wars and in particular mass migration, especially in Europe. Now here, of course, he's commenting on the recent U.S. election and the body slamming that Donald Trump gave to Kamala Harris and the Democrats. And of course, the Democrats so far don't seem to have learned their lesson. There's lots of voices in the media saying, you know, blaming their loss on white women or Latino men or this and that, you know, low information voters or whatever they're calling them these days. So there's lots of that going on. There seems to be zero introspection, of course. Personally, I hope it carries on like that. I hope they continue saying the same things for the next 4 years, because it will simply seal their fate and it will make the 2028 election a cakewalk. I have a feeling they won't keep it up for 4 years. Wiser heads presumably will prevail, if there's such thing as wiser heads amongst the Democrats. But anyway, let's get back to the clip here and see what Douglas Murray has to say about all this woke nonsense, which it seems in his view led to the Democrats' massive defeat.
They say this late in the day. Not just the far left, the center left, the moderate left, vastly underestimated the way in which culture war issues are not made up by conservative pundits, but are things that are felt by any parent whose daughter is training in an elite sport. It's felt in people's lives. It's felt by parents whose children come back from school having been told that there are a million genders and a lot of other woo-woo nonsense. And when it comes to things like the border, you know, they seem to hope, the Democrats seem to hope that the American public would not think anything particularly awry and would just be told it was a Project 2025 conspiracy, that for 4 years the border had been open and millions of people had come into the United States illegally. They thought that people didn't mind about that. They thought they could take these votes for granted. And the amazing thing is that they thought they could do this by playing the DEI game at the highest possible level. Why wouldn't you want to vote for Kamala? She's a woman. If you're a woman, you have to vote for Kamala. Guess what? Kamala's from an ethnic minority. Unless you hate ethnic minorities, why would you not vote for Kamala? I mean, this was seriously their pitch. And then you got all of the Democrat commentators on the media who zoomed in on the abortion issue again, when this is actually something which has healed significantly in the United States in the last few years since the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
If you like this kind of content, please make sure to subscribe and like. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you. Let's get back to the video.
As people realize that this is a state issue and states can vote one way or they can vote more another. But when you see these like white dudes for Harris who seemed to think that the most important thing about this election was to make it much easier for their daughter to abort their grandchild, I was like, why did you think that was an appealing message when you have cost of living crisis, you have the world having conflicts breaking out that didn't break out until recent years, when you have a totally open border, when you have the crime that comes from that, the debt that comes from that, the government overspend that comes from that. I mean, you know, as Elon Musk said the other day, there's about $2 trillion a year you could shave off from the federal government's budget in the US. And one of the things you could do would be to strip out all of the wasteful, woke nonsense, among other things, which isn't just not helping America, it's holding it back. And if they can do that, if they can strip out this horrible, destructive mechanism that's been put in place in teaching, in education, where American taxpayers pay more per student than almost anyone else in the world, and get out of it one of the worst education results of anywhere in the world, including the developed world. These are things that are really serious, and the Democrats did not run a serious campaign.
Well, that's a very good point Douglas Murray is making here on Sky News Australia, that yes, as we know now, in the meantime, the Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, has been created. It's going to be headed up by Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, supposedly, to slash government spending, get rid of bloated bureaucracy and all that. That's hope and pray. But as Douglas said, it also needs to be done in academia, in the universities, which have enormous bureaucracies, a lot of which is completely and utterly pointless, like all the DEI stuff, Title IX stuff, this and that, you know, stuff imposed by the federal government. Well, hopefully the Department of Government Efficiency will also get rid of the Department of Education, as far as I'm concerned, the federal Department of Education. Let each state take care of its business, of its education, as it should be done, as it was done before the creation of the Department of Department of Education back in the 70s at some point, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, there is enormous room to just slash away, so much fat to slash away, so much low-hanging fruit, and DEI stuff, you know, wokeism, all that, which has become embedded in universities' bureaucracy. Oh, if they manage to actually just cut all that stuff off, you know, not shrink it back a bit, not cut their budgets, but just eliminate it. Any affirmative action stuff, all the useless bureaucracy, which actually serves nothing, and you know, which actually doesn't help students in any way. It doesn't promote good education. It simply makes fees much, much more expensive. And it encourages a culture of getting bigger and bigger budgets for your department. You know, in the federal government, that's what it does. We've all heard this, you know, federal agencies at the end of the fiscal year, they're trying to use up their budget, because if they don't use it up, it'll be cut the next year. So they must use it up so they get the same amount of budget the next year or even more. You know, it's just a self-perpetuating cycle, and it gets worse and worse. And the primary aim of any organization ultimately becomes to keep itself, to survive as an organization, and not to do its primary purpose, not to actually provide the service that it was created to provide, but simply to survive and grow and metastasize. That's what the federal government has become. That's what's happened at universities. There's so much that could be done, and so easily. I mean, there's just all this stuff in academia which literally not only doesn't add anything, but is actively harmful and damaging. Douglas Murray really nails it here completely. Looks like Rita Panahi agrees with him. Let me know what you think about all this, as usual. And please do hit the subscribe button. It really helps me. Oh, and a like. Make sure to like. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.